Question number 1, and this question has been prepared by the Durham Region Association of Realtors and is relevant to many of our employees and the entrepreneurs in our community. First-time home buyers tax credit is a non-refundable tax credit available to Canadians purchasing their first home. If elected, would you support the Canadian Real Estate Association's recommendations to increase the $750 non-refundable tax credit to a $2,500 non-refundable tax credit for qualifying home buyers for the first-time home buyers?
If getting $2,500 versus $750 is enough for you to buy a home, you can't afford that home. Let's be frank about it. I would much rather see us look at regulations to make those houses more energy efficient so that it lowers your monthly bill for utilities for heating and air conditioning. If you put an extra $1,500 into your house in terms of installation, better furnace, better smart home technology for heating and cooling, you will save way more money every year than that difference between $750 and $2,500. That makes no sense.
Thank you. This question was provided by the Durham Home Builders Association and the Durham Region Association of Realtors. The Canadian Home Builders Association has been calling on all federal parties and candidates to help unlock the door to home ownership for Canadians. Federal mortgage rules have made it much harder for tens of thousands of younger and new Canadians to access the market, home ownership housing in our region and across Canada. So this includes both the stress test and the limit on the mortgage amortizations to 25 years. Young first-time buyers are the most impacted by changes to mortgage rules, especially those on insured mortgages. Extending the length of a mortgage improves affordability by reducing the size of the monthly payments. Data from Equifax shows that the young Canadians represent the lowest risk in terms of mortgage arrears. Also, data provided by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation reveals that returning to a 30-year insured mortgage for the first-time buyers would only have a minimal impact of 1 to 2.4% increase to prices. If elected, would your party commit to adopting the CHBA's recommendation to introduce 30-year amortizations for insured mortgages taken on by well-qualified buyers?
Thank you. We have to be careful here of unintended consequences. Okay, extending amortization rates just means we buy a bigger house, right? If we think about what's happened in the car market, 8-year loans now for cars. Okay, how long are we going to extend the loans for houses? It's a big issue. Now, what we should be looking at is the stress test. When we say it's a qualified buyer, but they're insured, why do we have to insure them if they're qualified? Okay, good question there. If they're properly qualified, they can afford the house without the insurance. All we're doing here is taking the risk of default and putting it on the taxpayers, not on the person getting the mortgage themselves. I don't think it's a good idea.
And this question has been provided by local chambers and boards of trade. And as you know, it's about the federal airport lands. It's pretty important to us. Land was set aside in West Durham in 1972 by the Liberal government for the development of an airport, a plan that has been reflected in the Durham Regional Plan and in local community strategies and plans. Since that time, the possibility of an airport has been reviewed, considered, and studied, with no final position being taken. To address the air and space capacity issues with Toronto Pearson Airport and to prepare for a continued GTHA residential and business growth, it is time for a decision to be made and plans for a Toronto East Airport in Pickering to be undertaken. What is your party's position on the development of these federally held lands?
Those airport lands are an unintended benefit, unintended consequence of decisions made almost 50 years ago. An airport is a 20th century solution. We need 21st century solutions to the problems. We do not support the airport. Canada does not need an airport. The world does not need another airport. What Canada and this region needs is a high-speed electric rail system from Windsor to Quebec City. You do that, and we eliminate the need for many flights between those cities. Now, I don't have enough time to explain it all. Go home, Google it right now on your phone. High-speed train, Spain, and look at the economic benefits on every town along the routes. Spain as a whole has benefited, Europe as a whole has benefited, and the environment has benefited by putting high-speed trains in instead of another airport.
Thank you. So this is the fourth question, and again, it's from really from the 8 Durham Joint Chambers and Boards of Trade. And we advocate for over 3,000 business members in Durham, and we're representing one of Canada's fastest growing regions with immense economic and social change. To encourage and continue strong economic growth, our position is that the federal government must prioritize a response to skilled trade, that there must be investment in high-speed connectivity throughout the entire Durham region and other rural pockets, that the government must provide strong trade support on tariff barriers with our major trading partners, including the U.S., and that the federal government must reassess the outdated federal tax system to establish an updated and fair tax system. So those are the points that we're considering as a Board of Trade and Chambers of Commerce based on our recent surveys with our membership. So would you briefly describe what is your party's plan to respond to these needs? And we're going to give them a minute and a half for this, okay?
Thank you. That's the kind of question my students hate. It was a multi-part question. You had at least 4 or 5 in there. So I'm going to address 3 of them. You asked about skilled trades, you asked about high-speed connectivity, and also about the tax system. There hasn't been a federal tax commission since the 1960s. We need one, and our party supports getting an arm's-length system in place right now as soon as possible. All right. Regarding high-speed broadband access, we've got this thing called 5G coming. 5G is a quite different technology. 5G requires antennas every 150 feet or so. All right. I think that's a natural monopoly, and we've got to get our publicly owned utilities putting that together. Imagine here in our area if Viridian can build high-speed internet to every place where they delivered electricity, we would have broadband everywhere. It's also a national issue because Huawei is in the news for security. I do not feel comfortable having Huawei build the backbone of our next generation telecommunications. I do not feel comfortable that way. And finally, on skilled trades, it's funny that question was asked because Peter, Beth, and Falvey and I were just talking about that in the lobby before coming in. When we were in school, we had shop class and home economic classes in grade 7 and 8. You can't convince an 18-year-old who's grown up on a cell phone that all of a sudden it's time to go into trades, all right? Now, we all have friends that are in the trades. They're people who have autonomy, they have mastery of a craft, and they have purpose in their work. All those jobs are local jobs. We need to do everything we can to start building skilled trades back into our culture, starting in grade 7.
Thank you. So that's the end of our questions. At this point, we're going to have concluding remarks. And we have time for each of you to have 2 minutes to summarize why you and your party are the best choice on federal election day.
Thank you again for taking the time to listen to the different ideas proposed to you up front. I think we'd all agree that you heard some ideas, good ideas, from all 9 people up here, all right? Now, one of the reasons I'm running is when earlier this year, when a few scandals came up, it looked evident that it would be a minority party. Wouldn't it be nice this time to vote for the people and the teams that you think have the best ideas for you, rather than voting against the people you hate the most? All right. When Elizabeth May talks about a minority government, she doesn't talk about balance of power. She talks about balance of responsibility. I think all 9 people up here have some responsibility and some good ideas. Now, as a business person, I chose the Green Party because we're willing to look for common ground. It's amazing how much you can get done when you look for common ground, and you don't care who takes the credit. CEOs have said that. Winning coaches for sports teams have said that. All right. The other thing, too, that makes the Green Party different is we're the only one whose members are not whipped. We don't have to kowtow to our leaders. We are encouraged to think. We are encouraged to bring different perspectives. So as your MP, I can bring the perspectives of this area forward, even if that's not exactly what my party leader wants me to say. Now, how are we going to do all of this? It's going to be tough. When I was in tech sector, we had a phrase called loosely coupled but tightly integrated. Each policy in and of itself can do well, but when you tie them all together, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, there's a multiplier effect. We have to work at the federal level, at the provincial level, and the municipal level to get that multiplier effect. Vote Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.